Thank you so much for joining us. And of course, we will be going straight ahead to our talking point today. It's going to be 3 days from now for the gubernatorial and of course House of Assembly elections to be held across, the states in the Federation. And of course, we will be talking about the outcome and of course the events following the election process to the results, that will be announced during the process of this election. And of course, we have our guest joining us to do justice to this topic. He is by name Mr. Abraham Oviawe, who is joining us right about now via a virtual platform. Mr. Abraham, good morning, and thank you so much for joining us.
Morning from Benin City.
Oh, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, it's a pleasure always to interface with you guys.
Thank you.
Opportunity.
All right, so it's going to be 3 days from now to the commencement of the gubernatorial and House of Assembly elections that will be happening across the states in the Federation. Talk to us about what your hope for this election would be like, what your expectations would be like for these elections, looking at the various issues that were raised during the presidential elections.
The gubernatorial elections and that of the State's House of Assembly is apparently going to be a different kettle of fish like what we found for the presidential elections. These elections for this weekend are going to be local, and we have more persons involved from various state constituencies and the governors of the state. I think our major focus, because politicians will naturally do their own things, they will want to do their own horse trading, interface with the electorate. I think what we must focus on, considering what transpired in the presidential elections, where the issue of transmission of results were quite a critical issues that actually irritated Nigerians. I think Inec must up their games. They must correct the wrongs. They must ensure that they dot the I's and cross their T's in this forthcoming election. Nigerians will not want anything short from an election that is free, fair, and credible. And again, if you like it, there have been huge pockets of agitation from point to point. You may get surprises. Individuals who naturally may not have the financial war chest, but owing to what have happened in recent time, they find themselves in a various state of assembly. Several factors will shape the elections in several states. For example, in Edo State, for example, there are clear factors that will determine and shape the elections. So you may not find what used to be where you have one political party holding sway in the House of Assembly. We are likely going to have a three-party state House of Assembly. To my mind, it means that you are going to have a robust engagement from various political parties who want to ensure that there is huge and natural interface for the collective good of the majority of the people in the state. And that in itself will help to elevate, because again, for us in Edo, there is no gubernatorial elections. It's in 2024. What we only have is elections for the State House of Assembly. And you will know that Edo have been on the news for the wrong reason in the last 2 years over the members of the House of Assembly. 14 members elect till date. We are not inaugurated in the Edo State House of Assembly. We now have the House of Assembly that have 9.5, or if you like, 9 member House of Assembly in the last 4 years. So the election for Saturday in Edo is going to be a great issue. People are interested, parties are moving seriously, people are showing capacity, people are wanting to hold sway and ensure that in the next 4 years they'll be able to cover the lost ground for which several state constituencies were unable to have representations.
All right, let me butt in, Mr. Abraham. Your points are really cogent enough, and they are quite accepted. But again, I want you to also understand that INEC has commenced distribution of sensitive materials, to several polling units and booths, as the case may be. My question to you is this: how protected do you think these sensitive materials could be? Looking at the fact that some of these politicians and political parties are so influential to the point that they might start having access to these things, or hoodlums, or some persons that, you know, that might just want to sabotage the process of the electoral body. You know, how protected do you think these materials are? That's one. Then two, do you think that some of these INEC officials or INEC staffs, you know, might, you know, somehow be induced or might not be induced, maybe because of the fact that INEC have tried to make their own, you know, ends so tight, you know, so that nothing really mar these elections, or this election that will be coming up on on Saturday, which is on the 18th of March?
Even though I lost you at some point, but I got the crux of your question. To my mind, let me tell you, one of the biggest challenges this country have had to confront himself with over the years is that rather than have strong institutions, we have strong men. It's a big issue, and I am scandalized. How can a country like Nigeria, we have an institution like the Nigerian police or the security agencies, who cannot stand tall in the face of gratification? Because you made a very salient point. How are we sure that these materials will not get into the hands of politicians or INEC staffs and induced? People do not have value for their oath of office. People do not have value for what they stand for, as it were. Because how, if materials have been sensitive materials, security agents are there to protect it, it gets to the rack centers, it gets to the polling unit on that day. And you have asked a vital question, and I'm still asking, how will these materials get to the hands of politicians? Because you agree that agents get to the rack center, do not get to the hands of other individuals. There are always collusions, because if you talk about writing of results, they are saying what happened in the polling unit is not what they are not saying at the collation centers. It means that there are duplications of results for which politicians or collusion with the independent body may have orchestrated this. This is a great challenge. I had thought that by 2023, Nigeria will not have cause to be discussing about this issue. The BVAS ought to be a game changer for us ordinarily. But it's painful that even in the heart of it, we still have all this. I feel that the challenge is thrown directly at the face of INEC, the security agencies, and the political parties. Unlike we used to have in the past, we have a two-party system. Today, we now have multiple party systems, depending on the areas where they hold sway.
You have really expressed yourself, you know, vehemently, especially with regards to the flaws, you know, that are likely to happen given what, you know, took place last election. You talked about the issue of this election being a very local one. I would want you to address your talk more on that. And of course, you talked about some members who for some reasons weren't inaugurated. What could be the likely reasons why these members who were probably, you know, elected were not inaugurated?
In fact, that was why I told you that the Edo election, certain factors are going to, it's going to be a local elections, depending on the peculiarity of states and constituencies, that will determine those who may hold sway. Like what the local man will say here, that this election is going to be bomber to bomber. The point I'm trying to make here, for the 14 members of the House of Assembly, in Edo State in 2016, as it were, 2019 precisely, members of the House of Assembly or members elect by the governor ought to issue a proclamation. The governor issued a proclamation, and from the allegations that was everywhere, that the communication of for inauguration were made to only a few persons. Because when such proclamation is issued to the clerk of the House of Assembly, it behoves on him as the clerk whose duty it is to inaugurate to administer oath of office to them, is to communicate date and time for such inauguration. Unfortunately, it wasn't done. That inauguration was done at night, between 9 and 10 p.m. at night in the House of Assembly. And it was done for only few individuals. You could even see that one of the members who had gone to buy suya to eat along the way was adopted. He was even putting on a short knicker to the House of Assembly to be inaugurated. And the other members who were inaugurated said that had not been done. They challenged that process. And they said that there was no basis going back to the House of Assembly when you have started a wrong process. The bakery here and there, because they were all from a same political party, but they had their own divide. There were political issues, and in the long run, the Speaker of the House of Assembly at that time, even though had limited numbers, declared their seat vacant. The matter has still been in court till date. The matter didn't move, but we have not gone past that because they started a fresh election for which new members will now be inaugurated. There are several factors. People are not saying that there is need for us to inaugurate people with capacity, and owing to the obedient movement, they are going to hold sway either you like it or not. In some areas, other political parties have their areas of strength. Some persons are saying that it is the governor who ensured that they were not inaugurated, and as such, because for us, we are pained that I don't have had the worst form of House of Assembly in the last 4 years. Anybody can confidently refer to them as a rubber stamp. How can you have a 9-member House of Assembly in a state where you have 24 constituencies? That is far from it.
All right, now, just a moment, Josh. Let me butt in. Abraham, let me butt in because you made a very, very salient point again, and I don't want us to also deviate from the topic, which is the Inec commencing distribution of sensitive materials. But before we go right into that, there is a senator or a member you talked about that wore short knicker, for the occasion of being inaugurated. What does that speak to you about such a person? Looking at the fact that this individual will be presiding over some certain people in his constituents. Now, looking at the fact that he is actually putting on a short knicker to the occasion where he's going to be inaugurated. What does that speak to you? Let's even start from there before we go straight now to the next question I'm about asking you.
If that's the point, that's the point we are trying to. Either of two things would have happened. First, you do not need anybody to tell you that no sane individual who have campaigned vigorously, the people had reposed confidence in him and voted him as a member-elect for a particular constituency. And when he is being called for inauguration, we in the most reckless manner put on a short knicker to such assembly. He wore a short knicker and a t-shirt. He was not given a jacket to wear on it. His narrative, even though may have changed at that earliest time, was that he strode out with a friend or so to just get something at the bus stop with that short knicker from his place, only to be called, and he told them this was where he was. They picked him up from there, took him to the same House of Assembly, and asked that he be part of those to be inaugurated. It is where he was bundled there. So to my mind, it is distasteful, and this happened in the dead of the night. There are security reports around. The police gave them their report. The DSS gave their report as to when the inauguration were done. There are plethora of cases that says the activity of the House of Assembly must not be nocturnal in nature. It's not a secret court like it's done at night. What that speaks to you is that first, the man was bundled to be part of that inauguration. I understand the survival instinct of the administration at that time that gave birth to all this. I had thought that for the general good of the state, they would have sheathed their sword and ensure that the state had a robust legislature that will make laws for the good and for the progress of Edo State. Rather than have this friction in the last 4 years, where only 9 persons were made to determine the fate of the state House of Assembly and the various constituencies. To my mind, that's unfair. These issues are still very much fresh in the minds of Edo people, and this reasoning and thinking will shape their perception and pattern of voting in the election. So don't be surprised when by Sunday or Monday you see results on persons who will not be representing the State House of Assembly may not be part of the major political parties which you apparently you have expected. You also agree with me that Edo State is a very conscious state where individuals have courage, they can speak very tall, and they can confront issues radically without any fear of favor. That's it, sir.
I can feel the way you speak. I mean, your pause, speaks to the fact that you're very courageous enough to express yourself, and I know same is, of course, with the Edo State indigene. Now you've talked so much exhaustively about Edo State as we speak. Let us shift our focus now to other areas, of focus, which is of course a flashpoint when it comes to gubernatorial election. Let's talk about Lagos State. Now, Lagos State, as it stands, is controlled by the ruling party, and of course, Lagos State, if you would agree with me, is the largest city in Nigeria, and of course the second largest in Africa after Cairo. Looking at what played out, in the last election, I mean the presidential election, where we had so much voter apathy and of course vote suppression in that particular state, what is the likelihood that this kind of situation that played out in the last election will not happen again, where people were threatened and we saw pockets of violence in some states, making sure that their party retains power, especially when it comes to the gubernatorial election?
Let me also assure you that what I know, Lagos is a no man's land. You have people who come, who are the drivers of the economy. They may not be indigenous, they may not be from Lagos State. They spread across the entire country. They are concerned about their business interests. They want to elect a governor who they know will be able to give policy directions that will not affect their businesses, give policy directions that will not affect the way and manner that they run their activity. In Lagos, everybody is always busy because they see it as a land where they come to tap from the rich economic platforms that exist there. I can assure you, the pressure you saw during the presidential elections, the interest you saw during the presidential elections, the agitations you saw during the presidential elections will not be there so much as we found the presidential elections. And like I also told you, it's going to be a local elections. Smaller constituencies are naturally going to be involved. The personality of the personalities in these elections will play a huge factor. What is the credentials of the man that wants to be governor for either of the parties? Because we have seen clearly that the obedient movement that determined the huge pressure and factor in the presidential elections have not informed us clearly. And we are very much aware that the obedient movement is not tied to the apron string of one party, but tied to the apron string of quality and competent candidates. That is why you could find that, for example, a Peter Obi has adopted a PDP candidate in Cross River State. It's a critical issue. It means that he has more regard. He feels the pulse more of the PDP candidate in Cross River State to be supported. Therefore, what is shaping and determining the election? I have also seen, for example, that they said about 9 political parties have adopted the gubernatorial candidate of the APC. Even though these political parties are more operational from their briefcases, they may not have the required spread in terms of units, wards, and local government area and constituencies. But either you like it or not, they have the books to grow, they have the news to escalate. These factors, this news help also shaping a whole lot. These are factors that are going to happen. You will have more pressure cookers in these elections, but be shaping by the different factors. I want to assure you very clearly that who the people feel will be able to manage their common patrimony beyond political party, because Lagos is a peculiar state. We have think tanks, we have intellectuals, we have businessmen. They will not want to vote in a candidate that will now affect their economic fortune. It's crucial in terms of policy direction and in terms of decision making.
All right,
very crucial.
Abraham, it's unfortunate we don't have so much time. We would have allowed you express yourself in this manner. We're just trying to, gather the last few questions before we wrap up this segment. All right. I have a question for you, and I would want you to answer within 30 seconds to a minute. Now, looking at the sensitive material, because I am still staying on the topic, right? Now, looking at the sensitive materials, and which the BVAS is not an exception of it. My question to you is this. What is the assurance that Inec is giving us this time that this sensitive material called the BVAS will not come up with issues relating to network, such that they will not be able to read results that were actually collected in the field? That's one. Then two, is there any alternative INEC have on ground such that if network fails, for them not to be able to read out the results that were collected in the field, they will still, fall within, expected results Nigerians will be expecting? So please do justice to this question within, just 2 minutes.
INEC must be cautioned. INEC cannot give excuses to Nigeria this time around.
At all.
If the BVAS machine can project our biodata from their server for accreditation for the elections, they must use that pace, that same determination to ensure that if the BVAS machine can do accreditation, that same machine should be able to transmit the result, which is a function of accreditation and voting. Excuses will not be allowed. Nigeria have lost confidence in them for what happened in the last elections. What Nigerians are waiting for this time haven't lost confidence in INEC. INEC has a duty to prove themselves by doing what is right. Because I am telling you, this may just be the last hope for Nigerians to determine whether they will continue to believe in this country or lose faith totally in the country.
All right.
INEC have a duty to ensure that they reassure Nigerians that what they said with respect to the presidential election is true by doing what is right at this time.
All right.
The BVAS must work.
All right.
Millions of taxpayers' money have been spent on it. It must work.
All right. That has been taken. Now let's move. Before we take you on Edo back again, we're going to talk about Rivers, because Rivers is also another area of focus for us. Now we are seeing for the first time a woman in the person of Beatrice Utubo taking a shot at the gubernatorial elections to be the first lady who is coming up as a governor in that state. With the fact that we know for a fact that Rivers has been largely controlled by the opposition party, the PDP, what is the likelihood that she could emerge as the winner?
The point is this, like I tell you, sovereignty resides in the people. It depends what will continue to advocate, that let the people be allowed to continue to determine who they desire to hand over their common patrimony. Because if you hand over the leadership of a state to someone who will not have the capacity to lead you to the Eldorado, is a problem. To my mind, I cannot determine whether or not she can emerge. But again, to aspire is something quite great. Rivers have its own peculiarity we have seen over time. The presidential elections we saw what apparently happened. I expect that the Rivers people must weigh the options of the candidates that have thrown themselves up for these elections. And if she appeals more to them, they should vote for her. But my major agitation is that INEC must ensure that the outcome of the election reflects the voting pattern of the people.
Now, talk to us about the body language coming from the electorate in Edo State, considering the fact that it is largely of the opposition party, the PDP, and of course the APC.
Just to say that Edo is, you agree, has 3 senatorial districts: the North, the Edo Central, and the Edo South. I can tell you the Obedient Movement is the party to beat in the Edo South. They have their grounds. They are everywhere. It's the more cosmopolitan local government, and a lot will apparently happen there. The Edo Central may see a protest vote. against the ruling party in the state because of what have happened in the last few days or in the last few weeks. They are bitter. They are not happy with the development. And again, you know, there's a dichotomy, there's already a division in the ruling party in the state. These are factors that will shape. They don't know. It's being ruled and controlled by the former NLC president and senatorial candidate-elect, member-elect, senator-elect, Adam Toshomole. Is his stuff. The deputy governor is also from there. But I want to say that we may have a three-party state, a three-party members House of Assembly, where the ruling party in the state may enjoy the list of membership from the way things are apparently moving, because there's a huge disaffection against the current administration with respect to certain policies, with respect to certain decisions that has to do with certain constituencies. These are factors, these are the dynamics that will determine and shape the outcome of the elections.
All right.
I will not be surprised if the ruling party do not have more than 4 members in the 24-member House of Assembly come the 18th day of March 2023. It is in the hands of the people to decide.
Accepted.
I am analyzing and expressing how I feel.
Indeed.
I have one vote, and I can't determine the constituencies. That is it, sir.
Indeed, Mr. Abraham, you've spoken well. But let's take you now to Delta State. I understand you are not in Delta. You are really, fully present in Edo State. But we're going to come back to Edo State. Tell us about Delta State. What's the body language like? What's the impression of people? Looking at the fact that this election is just a couple of days ahead, are people really, really motivated to come out? Looking at the fact that in the last conducted presidential elections, they were really disenfranchised. Their hopes were really, almost brought to the bear. And that encouragement for them to come out, is no longer there, as it were. What's the impression like in Delta State?
From our interface and findings from Delta State, there will be a lot of surprises. I saw clearly the daughter of the incumbent governor of the state contesting for the State House of Assembly. We're interfacing with the obedience movement, pleading for them to give her support. What that suggests to you that the obedient movement is now a phenomenon in the political atmosphere of the entire state, just like you also have in Edo State. What you will see, I have discovered that the opposition parties are apparently going to bring huge surprises against the current incumbents. I noticed that at the disenfranchisement, you could see what played out clearly in the last elections. You saw videos on the social media where ballot papers made for elections were dumped somewhere, and when you saw it was in favor of a political party who was alleged or said not declared the winner. What do we expect? Don't be surprised if the opposition party emerges as the governor, candidate emerges as the governor of Delta State, because I am told many big wigs who hitherto have supported the incumbent have since found their thinking and support elsewhere. Delta is another state to watch out for. Surprises abound. It doesn't matter if the incumbent was the vice presidential candidate of the PDP in the just concluded elections. There are huge disenchantment arising from the outcome of that elections. And these are factors that, like I also told you, this election is a local election. Depending on the dynamics and polemics of the activity of politics in that state, that will determine who we emerge. I am glad that all these are the major ingredients and indication for which you can agree that our politics and democracy is evolving.
What's the preparation or the plans of the obedience, coming on Saturday? What's the preparation like for them?
We're very sincere to ourselves. But for those who over time we have been interfaced with, we have embarked on intellectual judgment. We have been able to identify that they have the capacity to shape our policy and laws for the good and for the majority of our people. Our support stand tall and loom large the jurisprudence in favor of them.